community call of Index Co-op, and we have our partners from Rhino.Fi here as well. Dan, welcome to the partner community call.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Dan, what's your role at Rhino.Fi?
Sure. So I'm one of the co-founders of the company, and my position is the Chief Product Officer. So I had our product team and all the sort of strategies, activities related to that.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm Cruz, the ecosystem growth lead here at Index Co-op. We should be live on all of the Index properties, so Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and I think the Rhino.Fi YouTube channel as well. So guys, you can leave comments. We can monitor the chat, and we'll try to answer your questions at the end. If you're in our Index Insiders group, you got to ask questions ahead of time, so we will be addressing those as part of the agenda for the call. All right, let's get into it. The June partner community call with Rhino.Fi. So we do have a slide deck we can hop through. We'll go ahead and share that onto the screen here.
Perfect.
Housekeeping, I just went through. Make sure to drop into our Discord if you want to join that Index Insiders. We'll talk about it a little bit more at the end, and we will open it up to folks that are holding Index products on the Rhino.Fi platform. Disclaimer, I'll let you read through this one yourselves, but not financial advice, not tax advice, not legal advice, etc. As always. So here's what we're going to cover today. A history of Rhino.Fi. We've been working with Rhino.Fi this year, but they've been around for a long time. I think longer than Index even. They used to go by some different names that we'll break down. The Rhino.Fi mission. They are, if you're not familiar at all, I'll let Dan break this down later on, but they're a multi-chain aggregator. So a great distributor for index products and all kinds of different tokens and strategies in the DeFi world. We'll go through the Index Co-op mission. We'll break down what is a multi-chain aggregator. And our insiders really wanted to dive more into how self-custody works on Rhino, a little bit behind the scenes, talking about how the tech stack actually works, how it's different from other bridges, how it's different from other platforms. And then we will do a little bit of a demo showing the Rhino.Fi platform and how you can buy an index product on Rhino. So Dan, a history of Rhino.Fi. I've put a couple different project names there. The Rhino team has been together for a while. Used to work on another project called ETHFinex, and eventually it became DeFi and Rhino.Fi, I think, just in the last year or so. So what's the history there? Break it down for us.
Yeah, sure. So back in the day, sort of like 2019 and before that, I used to work with Ross and Will, who are my two co-founders, at a company called ETHFinex, which was kind of like an ETH and DeFi focused subsidiary of Bitfinex, which our CEO Will had sort of spearheaded. And back then, the world of crypto, like DeFi, was still sort of like a very new concept. This is like pre-DeFi summer. It sort of didn't really kind of exist that much, but it was starting to appear. We're seeing products like MakerDAO and so on, and we saw that this was going to be a very interesting direction for us and kind of like the future of crypto. And so we left and started DeFi. With DeFi's mission at the start was basically to make trading possible with self-custody. So like the self-custody was the thing that was really interesting to us at the time, and we wanted to build a platform where people can trade and still hold onto their keys. And so that's when we first partnered up with Starkware, and we launched on Starkware's layer 2 called StarkX. We were one of the first exchanges to launch on a layer 2, and it was kind of an interesting challenge. Before we knew so much about layer 2s as we do now, and there were a lot of interesting challenges with that. And our goal was basically to make to bring the experience that people are used to on a sort of on a normal exchange to DeFi. So sort of like the speed, execution, and sort of UX you're used to on a centralized exchange, you can do that on layer 2, but you couldn't do it on Ethereum layer 1.
I just want to. I mean, there was not much of that going on at the time. Like, can you lay the context? Like, you mentioned, the power of self custody. DeFi wasn't really around, so there weren't many people trading with self custody, right? I mean, most trading was happening on centralized exchanges.
Yeah.
And you mentioned layer 2. You guys were already rolling on a StarkX roll up back then. I mean, was Polygon popular yet? Even like, obviously, Arbitrum and Optimism were not even launched yet.
Yeah, so I believe Polygon. So the thing is, Polygon. I'm not sure if Polygon was even live yet. But the thing is, with layer 2s, so Ethereum wasn't expensive yet, right? So you didn't have the problem that we have now. So hence for us, layer 2 was much more of a UX sort of play, because having come from the world of centralized exchanges, looking at on-chain trading, it was sort of like quite slow and clunky, and a lot of transactions failed and so on. So we were like, and these were some things that the Ethereum blockchain had as inherent constraints. We were like, that UX is not gonna gel with the trading that people were doing at the time. Now, obviously, DeFi has allowed for a whole sort of other type of liquidity and way that people trade to exist, with swapping in AMMs, which is really cool. But that wasn't really sort of the case at the time. It was a very different landscape than now.
Awesome. Yeah. So you guys are very early into DeFi, and then Diversify. Why the rebrand? A totally new product, right?
Yeah. So Diversify, its original mission, as I mentioned, was to bring sort of that UX of trading and make it self-custodial. But we actually, as DeFi evolved, we saw that actually DeFi was a lot more used by not sort of super serious pro traders that are going to trade via API and bots, but more by regular end users. And we saw that like the much simpler interfaces like Uniswap and so on were what was attractive people. Like, people saw DeFi as sort of like a simpler alternative in a way. And that shift in audience also made us sort of rethink our value proposition. And so with Diversify, we actually started we started tailoring it towards actually being a simpler product for people to use. So again, having that like good UX, but good UX for sort of normal people, not pro traders.
Sure.
And we can talk about how our product evolved to what it is now. And we sort of slowly started making it sort of much friendlier for users with the sort of simpler swapping interfaces, adding the invest section, which is now sort of the core of our product, making it cross-chain and abstracting a lot of the cross-chain difficulties which we can go into. So then we were like, okay, we want to actually be bringing DeFi, to a mass market, to a lot of people. And the name Diversify was a very sort of nerdy early adopter tech name. And
it sounds like
we
a
really
name
enjoyed
that
it.
Index Co-op might like, with the kind of plays on. Was it meant to play on diversification?
So it was like a game on DeFi and diversification, which we thought was quite cool. But what we've kind of sort of realized after a couple of years of using that is that like no one would ever spell it right. It was constantly misspelled, and it was kind of difficult for people to remember. So at some point we were like, okay, we want to adjust our brand to be a lot more suitable for a bigger audience, to be sort of less scary, to align with our mission of wanting to make DeFi accessible to more people. And so that's why we decided to do something that's much easier to remember, to spell, much friendlier as a brand, and that would allow us to scale.
And that's where Rhino came in. Yeah, and I love the branding. The gradient is beautiful. I tried to match with my lights a little bit here, but there's too much light here. But yeah, I mean, it's a very accessible platform. Of course, the point of the product is to make DeFi more accessible. So it makes sense to have a brand that is welcoming. So yeah, I've got kind of what I could kind of pick up as a mission statement from you guys have an amazing about page. You just go to Rhino.Fi and kind of scroll through the about. You can get the timeline of Dan's earlier project, EatFinex, all the way through Diversify and Rhino, about us, mission, vision, and the team. How would you sum up kind of the mission of Rhino? I mean, certainly you kind of talked about how you got to here, but what are you guys really looking to do with the current product?
So essentially, experience is going to allow it to be used, have the user a mass audience, because we, by the way, how's my connection? Sort of follow me, okay?
Yeah, it looks like it started to skip out again a little bit. It was sounding perfect in the beginning. Sorry for the technical issues. Anybody? Let's see.
Yeah.
Try again.
So yes.
Seems good.
Yeah. So in one sentence, it's basically we are making DeFi have X that's appropriate for a wider adoption. And we all here love DeFi. Open source nature, contribute all the composability, the permissionlessness, and all that stuff is great. But it is actually sort of getting pretty tricky for users to use. And when we started seeing how DeFi works, it was on a you had to pay in gas. That gas was getting expensive at different times, and transactions would fail, and all that stuff. And now that we have a proliferation of layer 2s, they solve some of these issues, but sort of create others where like now the ecosystem is quite fragmented, where we have all these different layers on which products could be. You have to move between them, sort of using bridges. You have to have native tokens to pay for gas there. Many people, because they just sort of transfer one token, they're like, oh, I don't have the native token to pay for gas. On top of that, now we also have the the unfortunate event that, like, in our industry, there are also a lot of like not sort of very good players, kind of a lot of bad actors. So on top of that complexity, users have to navigate the fact that they might just get scammed on one of these products. And so DeFi is this great thing, but like actually from a user's perspective, it very quickly becomes very overwhelming to use because of all these factors. So with Rhino, we are trying to basically sort of get rid of all of that for the users and create a space where you can have sort of the user experience and safety that you would be used to on a so in a normal product outside of DeFi, with sort of abstracting away having to pay for gas, having to switch networks, having to bridge, and all that stuff, and sort of investment opportunities on our platform from trusted players like Index.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, abstracting away complexity is certainly the game that we're in, as well as, of course, many people in DeFi right now. We need to lower the barriers to technical users. So it's not just technical users, I should say. But I always love to compare you guys to it's like a classic like hub and spoke model for like in like kind of a more supply chain, or like in the physical economy world. It's like you just want to go to your local Rhino.Fi and know that they're going to have all of the good products that you want, right? And then for someone like Index on our side, like we maybe don't want to have to worry quite as much about like going to direct to every single consumer and like all of the unique challenges of meeting people in all these different chains or different neighborhoods, right? It's like we can just make our product available to Rhino.Fi. You guys can go get it, and then you can handle that last mile distribution for us. It's a really good model.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, to be honest, I would like to see that model to be more popular in DeFi. I think that's sort of the recipe for success, for A, actually really good products, and B, in a way that users can use. Because if you think about it, sort of the requirement company to build really good sort of infrastructure or really good sort of finance that in that you want to see that they're very able, very transparent. You don't want them to be moving that fast. You want the governance to be clear. But on the other side, your product actually have a big selection of sort of these. Sure, in the future, that being sort of tailored to maybe like local markets, maybe to specific audiences, and so on. So sort of the requirements from building the instruments and the user are different. And like for one company to be able to do that, I think we're so past those days.
Yeah, definitely agree with the vision there. So the Index Co-op mission, rolling out a slightly new mission statement. If you've been following closely, we put out a new brand book recently. So Index Co-op mission, we're on a relentless quest to build the best tools for assessing the risks and returns of digital assets. Of course, everyone knows us as a builder of index tokens. We started out with the DeFi Pulse Index, obviously market cap weighted index of DeFi tokens. Sounds very like analogous to the indexes available in TradFi. We've expanded to building yield-bearing tokens, as is kind of a more common use case within DeFi. And we're building out our infrastructure more and more, adding on more modules to the index protocol, which is kind of the set of smart contracts that we use to build these tokens that are redeemable for their underlying assets. And we're really just trying to build out, the fullest feature set we can to access the best strategies buildable on DeFi, and are opening to partnering with all kinds of talented folks for different roles. So, Rhino.Fi for distribution. We had Argent Wallet on last week. Certainly we don't want to be in the business of building the wallet and like the entire infrastructure layer. We want to partner with folks like Rhino.Fi for distribution, Zappers and Zerions of the world, et cetera, et cetera. And also product partners who come to us with methodologies for different products. We are kind of the infrastructure layer and the product builder. But we'll probably see a lot of players in the DeFi ecosystem becoming like a little bit more modular, right? Like this composable ecosystem that we've built in DeFi, it doesn't make sense for everyone to be filling like every single role and meeting the customer, especially with the complexities of multi-chain DeFi where it is today. So that's kind of the mission statement we've got. There's a link in the chat here if you want to read more about our purpose, value, and mission. Also, the Rhino.Fi about page is in the YouTube comments. So a lot of content for those that really want to deep dive into the protocols. So plug check. What is a multi-chain aggregator? We've got a little graphic here that we cooked up when we first partnered with Rhino.Fi. That our IC ETH product, the leverage staking product, that's the token logo you see at the top of the graphic. And then we've got kind of a couple of different bridges, I guess, to these different chains: Arbitrum, Polygon, Binance Smart Chain. I know we could add zkSync Era there as well. So what the term multi-chain aggregator, break it down for us.
Yeah, sure. So I think multi-chain aggregator is like a term that like can be sort of interpreted in a couple of ways. I think one of the ways in which sort of people see that is kind of like a regular aggregator where you can sort of see and invest in opportunities from sort of different providers in one place, or different protocols in one place. And multi-chain sometimes referred to like, okay, we're going to have the same product but on different chains. Like, for example, Uniswap is now on like 5 chains or something, and you can use Uniswap on each one of these chains. With Rhino, it's kind of different because what we do actually is you can enter Rhino from any of these chains. Once you're in, you can see opportunities and coins and whatever, again, on any of these chains without having to do anything special. So from that perspective, we're more like whether we want to call it cross-chain or omni-chain or whatever. But the point is, we don't have the same product deployed to many chains. It's like it's one product that you can access from anywhere and do whatever there. So in the case of the like ICE, you can, for example, deposit from Arbitrum, Polygon, Binance, now Optimism, and ZK Sync as well, and Polygon ZKVM, and you can deposit ETH from any of these places, and with that ETH participate in DS ETH, which is on Ethereum, and vice versa. So that's the concept behind it. Is that like you don't need to worry about what chains things are on Rhino.
Yeah, awesome. And let's talk a little bit more about like what chain you're on when you're using Rhino, right? You mentioned the StarkX rollup a few times. You mentioned you guys kind of developed it with Starkware a while ago. Like, what is this chain? Where is this chain? Who else is using this chain? What more can you tell us about like the actual environment that Rhino exists on?
Yeah, sure. So we can maybe talk a little bit about, let's talk about, sort of StarkX, which are the layer 2 technology we use, and then we can talk about how that fits with the other layer 2s. We were the first user of StarkX, which is one of Starkware's products. It's basically like the one before for Starknet, which is a ZK rollup, and it's something called Validium, which is kind of like a very technical term, but essentially what that means is that it's a zero-knowledge proof rollup where we put proofs on chain, but the underlying data is stored off-chain. Polygon are planning on migrating their POS chain to the similar type of setup. So let's say if we take something like ZK Sync, they are a full ZK rollup where they store the data on chain. We store it off chain. Now, why that matters and why that makes a difference? So storing the data off chain has a couple of advantages. One of them is that your activity is private because the data is not posted on chain, and the other one is that it's much cheaper to transact because you don't put data on the Ethereum blockchain. And sort of in a nutshell, how that works, it's similar to other ZK rollups. Essentially, the transactions that users make are like batched together, and in a period of time, which is like a proof is generated that sort of the set of balances of the users on the rollup is correct. And then that proof gets put on chain. And there are a few operators of like DYDX, Sorare, and so on. So we share a common prover, which is the sort of the piece of the infrastructure that creates the proofs that go on chain. So everyone has their sort of own instance, but the sort of the proof generator is shared, which is helpful with some like economies of scale.
So would you essentially say you're on? Sense? Yeah, I think it makes sense. Let me try and repeat it back. So you guys use a StarkX rollup. It's a Validium rollup, which is a subcategory of zero-knowledge proofs, of zero-knowledge proof rollup. The data is stored off-chain, which enables the privacy component that you mentioned. I think we've gone over that a little bit previously, but essentially when you're using Rhino.Fi, there is some element of privacy, not full in terms of like comparable to Tornado Cash. There's no like random, tumbling going on, but no one can look up, your 0x address and see exactly which assets you have on this rollup. There's no block explorer there. That's the extent
in terms of in terms of privacy, I would compare it to like maybe like a Kraken or a Coinbase, where like the public can't see your activity, but the operator, like ourselves, we can see the activity. And in terms of the data,
deposit into Rhino.Fi. Sorry, you can deposit into Rhino.Fi. You can always see which assets you have, but other people cannot. the way that finance works in most of the off-chain world, right? But maybe the operator of the platform knows, what's in your account and what's not. And then that's the privacy side. I think pretty straightforward. Probably no need to dive too much deeper there. And then in terms of like the multi-tenancy, so this chain is also used. You said you shared a prover with some other applications. I think you mentioned it was like SoRare, formerly DYDX. They've moved to Cosmos now. Would you say like the same rollup is used by these other projects as well?
So this like StarkX, which is the product, would be the same. That's why the sort of the proofs are. You can do the proofs with the same prover. However, there are sort of like different setups you can do, and I believe they don't all do Validium. So some of them decide to put the data on chain. I believe DYDX used to put the data on chain. So we don't do that. So like some of them can be sort of like a full Zeki rollup. Some of them can be Validium, but from the proof side, it's similar.
Got it. That's so like using a battle-tested rollup that some of these other applications have also decided to use for, sounds like, great benefits in terms of the rollup being very cheap. The privacy is optional depending on how you deploy it, but really interesting model. I love the like semi-privacy. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, when we first started using this, it was quite new. Like layer 2s were new. This was like Starkware's first product, but like I'm pretty happy with the adoption it's had, because that means that now, I think at its peak, DYDX had over $1 billion in that contract. So that's been under a lot of pressure. Starkware have now released a bug bounty for that contract, and because it's shared by like so many other users, I think it's like $1 million bug bounty to go and try and break that contract. So like that sort of confidence, right? 1.5 years with no hacks or issues with that. So that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Battle tested. And how does self-custody work on Rhino? We have a diagram we can walk through a little bit. So let's go ahead and pull it up here, and you can take me through it. But I think what the most important, I guess what we really want to go through is like talk a little bit about bridges, because you guys are a multi-chain aggregator. Like the main pain point you're solving is people don't have to bridge back and forth to all of these different chains. So you can go through as much of this as you want, but like how do you solve the user doesn't have to bridge? You guys bridge some of the assets to the StarkX rollup for the user is kind of like the key takeaway. But go through as much as you want here. I think people just want to understand a little bit more about like what's happening behind the scenes while they're using Rhino.Fi, because definitely some of our users have said like they're not, it seems like a great platform. Like they trust it, but they don't necessarily fully understand exactly what's happening on the back end.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. And I think the thing is we're aiming to build something that really feels like unlike anything else in DeFi, which I'm quite proud of. But at the same time, when people see it, they're like, "Oh, this is unlike anything I've seen. I'm not sure how this works." So I think it's fair to go through that. So you can think about our sort of architecture is like we have the core, and then we have like outposts on different chains. So the core is our rollup, which is on Ethereum. So that's the StarkX rollup we were just talking about. So basically, all Ethereum chain, like sort of native tokens, would be sort of deposited and held in our smart contract on Ethereum. So, for example, the IC products, the index scope products, which are mostly on Ethereum, they would be held in our smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain, and then sort of transacted within the rollup. However, we also allow for using products on different blockchains. So, for example, you can swap tokens which are not on Ethereum, like Arbitrum and Optimism, and also access yield opportunities. And the way we do that is basically we have like a smart contract wallet in each one of these chains, which is like our outpost. And that contract basically allows us to interact with like different contracts, like we've integrated Paraswap and some like yield aggregators. It allows our users to essentially interact with these things through our smart contract. And the way we sort of manage to abstract the bridging away from users is that for a user, if you're, let's say, you've deposited your USDT, and we're like, okay, you have that much USDT. If you say, oh, I want to buy this thing on Polygon, we would sort of do the bridging for you in the background. Then with that USDT that you now have on Polygon, I that token on your behalf, and now that's going to be held in our on Polygon. Now, the thing that's worth noting there is that like in those contracts, like the balances of every user are known, and sort of the transactions for each user are recorded. So from a self-custody point of view, that means you have custody because, you know, in that smart contract belong to you. From the privacy point of view, though, if a user, if someone who was more savvy was lower the entries in the contract, they will see your balances there. So the cross-chain aspects are not as private as the rollup aspects, but to purposes of self-custody there.
Got it.
We've done that. And so in that whole setup, you know, when we're talking about what's decentralized, what's not decentralized, the step that is, so we mentioned that like everything that's in the rollup is self-custodial in the contracts on the various sort of outposts. Again, it's self-custodial. The part that still isn't is that link, that sort of bridging we do behind the scenes for you. So essentially, when we're saying like, okay, you know, you've deposited dollars from here, but you want to use them there, and we sort of exchange those for you. That part is like done by us. Basically, we do something called like a conditional transfer, and you need to trust us as the operator that we are going to do that trade sort of fairly between the two chains.
So what's the difference? So you guys have had to build bridges between Polygon and your StarkX rollup, between Arbitrum and the rollup. What's the difference between like that bridge that you built and something like the canonical like Arbitrum bridge or Polygon proof of stake bridge?
Yeah, so basically the way our bridges operate is that we have sort of like a contract on each one of those chains, and you know, like we are one of the users. We're one of the users on these on those chains. So basically, when you send us funds on one chain, we would into that smart contract, we would credit your account on a different chain. That's why it has that sort of centralized step, but it allows for sort of instant transfer funds at like almost no cost.
Got it. Yeah. So I mean, the Polygon or the Arbitrum bridge work on like a lock and mint model as well. So it's pretty similar, no?
Yeah, I think very few bridges sort of manage to make it sort of completely decentralized, and it usually comes with sort of a lot of waiting time and gas costs. I think there are some sort of innovations coming in the bridge. I think we're seeing like the protocols becoming sort of a lot more interoperable. You know, we're seeing all the sort of like hyper chains and super chains that will be sort of, you know, interoperable coming. But I think for now, the different blockchains are still like a little bit too separate to be able to do it in a completely trustless way easily.
Yeah, sure. And I think something that's not pictured on this diagram that is also really beneficial to users is how you guys get the inventory that people want to buy on your StarkX rollup over there, right? It's like so for example of like Index Co-op's diversified staked ETH product, you guys will go and mint a big batch of it on mainnet and then bridge it over to the rollup, and then you can sell it, you know, piece by piece in much smaller chunks to the user. So there's a lot of kind of, you know, efficiencies of scale there as well. You're bulk buying like Costco by the pallet, and then people can just come buy one by one.
Yeah, and that has sort of like two benefits. One of them is that the users obviously don't have to pay gas if they want to buy index core products. If you want to, you can exit and enter very easily without that sort of eating into your profits. But the other side effect is that like we're not going to put opportunities on the platform that we don't want to hold a little bit of collateral ourselves. So we're kind of eating our own dog food in a way. So like, yeah, we're not going to make our users hold something that we wouldn't hold ourselves.
Yeah, that's a much bigger deal, I guess, with financial products even than Costco. Although whatever, there's some carrying costs to inventory, but yeah, definitely you're putting your money where your mouth is, and it's a curated environment, which of course is great for. I mean, probably I was gonna say like maybe more beginners, but probably everyone. You're not gonna buy stuff that you have no business buying, anyways, and that Rhino.Fi is taking some long exposure to the things that are helping the platform as well.
Yeah, and I mean, like we're all still like early adopters in the space, and probably everyone has sort of like a chunk of their portfolio. They're like, okay, this is sort of my cold storage or whatever. This is my main money that I want that. I want that to be somewhere where like I know it's gonna be good. And then maybe with like some small chunk of your money, you're gonna go and sort of explore the ecosystem and try out experimental things and so on. So we all have different use cases, but like at Rhino, that curated environment, we're aiming for it to be like the place where you can like sort of not worry when you fund to there, you're not gonna get rugged.
Sure. I mean, that's certainly what Index tries to do as well. If we build all of our own products, so certainly we only stand behind the things that we build. But yeah, it makes it simpler for the user. We've got some comments here I'm gonna pull up. Brad says, can you further pleb check the off-chain data storage and custody? Walking through an example, say I purchase Index's ICE through Rhino. Is the ICE at that point still in the custody of Rhino?
No. So the point about your sort of like Costco sort of explanation was we're sort of like you can think about us like as a market maker. So like we have a bunch of this stuff to sell. Once you buy it, it's yours. And we can't like the funds that users have on the platform are completely like untouchable by us. We can't do anything with them. There have been scenarios where like users have had issues with sort of, let's say they've lost their seed phrase or something and we're like, no, it's, that's sort of the downside of self-custody, but that's the question about the connect.
Yeah, so it's kind of further continuation of the question. So, okay, so I buy the ICE from Costco. Now it's in my possession. I think the like mentally just not having like a block explorer on the StarkX is what kind of confuses people. Like, but it is attached to your same wallet address on that roll up, the same way like the tokens that you hold on Arbitrum are, right?
Yes, yeah, and it is attached to your wallet, and that's important because let's say for some reason we turn malicious, or our like prover operator or anyone sort of in the chain of operating our platform turns malicious. What happens with your funds? And what's going to happen is if we don't process sort of batches and withdrawals within a certain amount of time, I think like 24 hours, any user can trigger the emergency withdrawal operation. And then basically all the funds from the contract are going to get dispensed back to their or to the address that you are using. And even in the, either we turn malicious or like events, you always be able to get essentially.
So in that emergency withdrawal scenario, do my funds show up on Ethereum mainnet or from whichever chain that I deposited from?
So they would be what your it depends on what you're holding. On the Yeah, usually they will. So, for example, the ICETH products, they only sort of live on Ethereum. So those would always be on Ethereum. If you have deposited, let's say, USDT from Polygon, and you haven't done anything with that exchange for other stuff, that will probably be still back on Polygon, because there's no reason for that to be removed.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, I mean, you can just think of the StarkX rollup similar to other layer 2s. It's still in your custody. It just has this like semi-private element, so that the best block explorer for you to use is the Rhino balances screen, essentially.
We have a history section as well where you can go and sort of check your.
So last, what's the Rhino end game? What is the kind of the ideal like end state? It sounds like we've talked a little bit about more DeFi actors kind of adopting the like hub and spoke distribution model that we've that I've analogized with a physical supply chain. I used to work in supply chain, as you can tell. What does the Rhino end game look like? What do you guys kind of hope to see in the future?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on sort of what time horizon we're speaking about. I think on the sort of longer term time horizon, we want to see that sort of normal people, so to speak, the early majority are using DeFi. DeFi is bringing real value to their life. They're not just gambling or sort of farming rewards and stuff. We want to see masses of people using DeFi because it brings value in their life, because it is better than the alternatives they have to grow their wealth, transact, invest in products that they wouldn't be able to access otherwise. And we see Rhino playing a major role into actually creating the sort of the experience and the environment for people to be able to do that. Sort of short term, in the sort of place where we are now, we have mostly early adopters in the space of in DeFi right now, right? And we've seen that. So we're focused on building a product that the current user base of DeFi can sort of use and benefit from. We have our eye on the next audience, which would be that maybe use CeFi a bit before they sort of got burned. Those that use maybe a little bit more extravagant and traditional finance products, or like neobanks, sort of the you can imagine the sort of like next wave of people who are ready to jump. I think being that audience coming into DeFi, our product and probably other products are going to have to adapt a little bit and extend the feature sets with something like the wallet side being much easier to use, fiat on ramps being more integrated. I think the Argent guys you had on before are working on some of these problems, and I think a lot of the other products in the space will have to move towards that direction to cater to that wider audience. So that's sort of the long-term game, and sort of I guess the next step we see that where us in the industry is going to go before reaching that.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, similar for Index, I think the end game we like to see is certainly more people taking control of their finances, the power of self-custody proliferating through the financial system. I think the ability for users to withdraw their assets if necessary, if required, is just like a must for the future of finance. Not everyone has to hold their products in a hardware wallet with the seed phrase, whatnot, but you got to have like the option to, right? You can't be like completely beholden to an intermediary. And we'd really like to see the power of DeFi yield strategies proliferate anywhere that people hold a cash balance. So, in your Venmo account and your Cash App. I always forget what the super app is, Revolut in Europe that everyone uses there, right? Or I mean, people do a ton of sports betting here in the US. It's like, what if you had like a yield earning option there? It's like, well, maybe I shouldn't make this stupid bet if I can actually just like stake some ETH and earn a decent APY. Different strokes for different folks. But we'd really like to see kind of the merging of CeFi and DeFi as well. Like we put out a piece last week on the DeFi mullet distribution strategy. We recently partnered with a CeFi firm called Matrixport over in Asia that is using ICE on the back end to power their Earn program, right? They saw Celsius and Gemini Earn blow up last year, and for their Earn program for their customers, they want to make sure they're using actual on-chain yield sources. Or there, I think just the transparency is the killer feature. You know, it just holds everyone accountable by having the actual yield source be transparent. You know, we all saw kind of what happened last year with just contagion spread everywhere. Even something like what happened with GameStop.
Yeah,
like just put assets on chain, make it transparent. Like the numbers will always add up. Right, if it's actually transparent and there are watchdogs, and even better if there's an immutable record, but even just transparency gets us most of the way there.
Yeah, that's a very recurring feedback from our users. So we try to speak to sort of like 3 or 4 users every week of our products to sort of like keep in touch with how people are feeling. And when it comes to yield products, yeah, one of the most mentioned things, people are like, I want to know where the yield is coming from. They're like, I guess people have been burned by products that have like 20% yield on source, just tokens coming out from somewhere. So I think that transparency of like, okay, what's the mechanism? Is this like legitimate sort of real yield? Like, how is it generated? Is really important.
Yeah, for us as well. I mean, our products are always redeemable for the underlying assets. So, you know, 24/7, 365 arbitragers are, you know, keeping the product honest. It needs to really be worth what it says it's worth. And yeah, definitely we're always thinking through like the best ways to visualize that for users, because, you know, we're trying to abstract away all the complexity on the front end, but people appreciate the transparency on the back end. So, you know, splitting the difference between like, we have so many early adopters and early majority here that are able to like, you know, look things up on the back end and verify, but not everyone should have to, at least like certainly not for everywhere. So we will do a little demo. But quickly, since you mentioned, you know, you guys like to speak to users as much as you can. We do as well. We've got a program called Index Insiders. It's been open for holders of at least $10,000 of all of our products. Kind of like a small little focus group for you to talk to our product team, get you know, access to our products before they kind of hit the open market, get feedback to our product team. Anyone that's holding an Index Coop product on Rhino.Fi, we're lowering that threshold from $10,000 down to $1,000. Hop into our Discord. You can join the Index Insiders. There's a little type form you can fill out. We'll verify kind of your holdings and get you in there. And then this graphic are some NFTs we're going to launch with Hedgie very, very soon for all of the Index Insiders. They're going to have cool little owl NFTs, and they're actually going to have our Index governance token locked inside of the NFT. So you got to hold it for a minimum holding period, but a pretty cool, like unique NFT that we're excited to roll out to the Index Insiders. So go ahead and join by hopping into our Discord. And then we'll do a little bit of a demo here. So I'm here on the Rhino.Fi platform. I've got a wallet connected. This is the Explore page. As you mentioned, kind of right off the bat, we're hit with a lot of the yield earning opportunities that you guys have. The invest has become like kind of the main use case that I guess Rhino.Fi is built around.
Yep.
And then there's some other things over here: trade, swap, pools, send, and bridge. So the trade's kind of interesting. What I was saying is like, it looks a lot like, you know, the way you trade on a kind of centralized exchange screen here. What, how do you guys like settle these on? Is this all happening on the StarkX roll up as well, or how does this work in relation to, you know, we've talked about invest flow only so far.
Yeah. So this is basically our markets, which are native to the to our StarkX rollup. So the ones which are based like Ethereum tokens. We actually have like an order book powering them in the background. So this screen essentially allows you to trade on the order books like you would on like Binance or Bitfinex. And yeah, being on that StarkX rollup allows us to actually be able to execute these fast enough to have that experience. So, and for a lot of these markets, actually, we share liquidity with Bitfinex. So if you go on the Ethereum market, you would see that it's like very, very deep. You could trade like pretty big amounts without, with very little slippage. So like Bitcoin, USDT, Ethereum USDT are very sort of solid markets.
Yeah, very very interesting. I've got the DSETH open here on the chart. Of course, it's pretty much up only against ETH because it is a yield bearing version of ETH. For those who don't know, let's go to the Invest tab because that's the kind of the main main event here. So we've got, this is the DSETH page. We've got the kind of some historical APY stuff going on here. Nice, it's the 3 to 4%. ETH staking yield's been down a little bit lately. I guess we've talked through mostly kind of like how it works. Well, this is our specific product, but I'll just tell users it's very simple. First, you just have to deposit into Rhino.Fi. I think you can do it right here from the screen. So like obviously the number one screen we want you to go to is the app.round.fi/invest/DSETH. When you're in here, you can deposit from all these different chains, right? I want to deposit ETH. I can go from all of these different chains that are pictured down here below: Ethereum, Polygon, Arbitrum, Binance Smart Chain, ZK Sync Arrow. What is the purple guy? Oh, the ZK EVM.
Polygon ZK EVM.
All right, awesome, cutting edge and optimism. Deposit in, boom. Then you're gonna have something in your little wallet balance, and you can go ahead and buy some DSETH. But you call it supply because it's a yield earning strategy, right? It's in supply instead of buy. Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom, boom, boom. Super cool. I'll go ahead and buy some more. I've got some ETH hanging out in Rhino.Fi. I've got about $50 worth. Let's do it. So let's talk through the business model for you guys while we're here. There's a fee only when you go to withdrawal of just 0.02%.
Yep.
Very small. So is that kind of the business model for all of the earn products? How is the kind of the fee calculated? How does it work for the user?
Yeah. So currently we're doing a fee on withdrawal, which is generally scaled with what the yield is. We like to keep it to sort of certain amount of days that you would
roughly 1 day of interest you're going to pay on withdrawing. That sounds, I mean, that's very fair.
We are exploring the option into moving into more of a sort of like a performance fee. So like right now, if you're going to pay the 1 day fee regardless of how many days you keep it for. So we want to sort of make it a bit more fair, where the fee is sort of proportional to how long you've stored it. So like even if you invest and remove straight away, you basically wouldn't pay a fee because you haven't accrued anything. So awesome. We're essentially moving to that model. It's going to make it a little bit easier because you don't have to like do maths around like, okay, how many days do I need to keep it to break the fees and so on.
Gotcha. You've even got a receipt page. You can download a CSV.
Yeah.
I guess that's important since it's kind of a semi-private. Your crypto tax software might not pull it in automatically, right?
Yeah. We do the CSVs, and we have catered them to fit with the sort of tax softwares, the most popular ones.
Oh, somebody wants me to switch to dark mode in the chat. I forgot. Of course, in crypto, you have to be on dark mode. Looks good. Pools, I think, is kind of interesting. So you guys have an AMM on the StarkX rollup?
Yeah.
Cool.
So we have an AMM running. So for some tokens, we have a local AMM market rather than an order book. So users can participate in that and get trading APY, trading fee APY, sorry, plus some rewards we do in DVF.
DVF, I guess you've launched the governance token when the name was Diversify.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. We, as a builder / issuer of tokens, we know it's not too straightforward to change the name of tokens after you've already launched them or to deprecate them. So DVF will live on, a good relic from the early days.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's probably all we need to do. I guess let's take a look at the bridge chain. I guess deposit your funds from chain A, withdraw fund. Oh, so you guys have, that's right. You guys have just a pure bridge. Since you have all these bridges built in the background, I remember when ZK Sync era had just launched, you guys were like one of the most popular bridges, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah, because of, we talked about how the architecture is built and all that stuff. And yeah, that allows us to actually move funds between chains very quickly and very easily. So yeah, you can deposit and move, deposit and withdraw to any combination of these. And the launch of new chains always makes bridges quite popular. So after the ZK Sync launch, we saw about 150,000 users use the bridge, which has been great to see that usage.
Awesome. All right, I think that's probably all we're gonna cover today. Use the Rhino.Fi platform, guys. Super simple. Abstracts away a lot of complexity. Even more if you go and buy an index co-op product, which is abstracting even more complexity on the back end. Diversified staked ETH here is, of course, the one we're most excited to push today. We've been live for about almost 6 months now for diversified staked ETH, getting ready to rebalance, have our first rebalance and add a fourth liquid staking token to the index. I won't say what it is, but you'll see it coming up soon.
Nice.
All right. Thanks, Dan, for coming on from Rhino.Fi. That will do it for the June community call from the Index Co-op.
So thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Have a good one, everybody. Happy Tuesday.